Hi, I'm Danica, and this is my grief story. I grew up in Vancouver, Washington. I'm the oldest of three of us kids, and we were a really good family. We all went to church, had great friends, and we were all artistic. My dad was a drafter, so he drew and he built all kinds of cool things for us kids. My mom used to paint in college, and then having us kids, she became kind of like interior designer, and she'd cook fancy meals. Like, we were always doing some sort of art thing. And so very early on, I discovered, a love for the arts. It was the night of October 20th when I was 12. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I noticed that all the lights in our house were on. And I knew something was wrong. So I opened the door and walked out, and no one was around. I turned the corner, peeped into my parents' room, and I saw my dad on the floor. He was gone. So, being the oldest, I tried my best to take care of my younger siblings while Mom, arranged all the things and tried to hold our lives together as much as we could. But the following year, my grandma was diagnosed with a rare form of lymphoma, and my mom became the caregiver. And so I became the caregiver for my siblings. And so watching my grandma die was completely different. It happened really over a period of six months or so. We were kind of grieving while she was with us. And so it was a very different kind of death. That her death was almost relief, that she wasn't suffering. But by the time that she died, we hadn't really had time to mourn anything about our lives. We were just trying to hold it together. As a young teen now, I fell into deep depression and deep numbness. There was a period of quite a few years as a teen that I hadn't shed a tear, and I was afraid if I let one tear come that it would never, ever stop. So during that time, art was my my kind of outlet. I didn't want people to think that I was not okay. I wanted to be the girl who had it all together. And so I would paint deep or dark things, but often it was almost like it had a filter on it. Like, I would put an aspect of light or hope in it, that showed people I'm okay. And I think that was my way of protecting myself. Stay this far. You wouldn't like me if you saw, all the deep stuff inside. I met a group of friends when I was at college. They were with the church over there, and I think they were the first people I met who were real. They truly wanted to know who I was, how I was doing. They would share their own stories, the good and the bad. And honestly, I was kind of terrified of them. Like, oh my gosh, these people are gonna see right through me. And so I held them off for as long as I could. But I ended up experiencing an emotional breakdown after my first year of college. And everything came crashing down emotionally. I was mourning my dad as if my dad had died the day before. And I would sit in our little garage art studio at home and paint and then cry and then paint and then cry. I didn't never know if I would get out of that. So it was a really deep time. It didn't happen overnight. But as I went back to college after that summer, and as I painted out, truly started to paint out what I was feeling and going through, more and more people got to know me, who I really was. and I found that I was loved. So right after my time of brokenness, I became a mentor in my church group in college. I think I was really trusting of my leaders to ask me to mentor, seeing as I was so newly broken. But I think that brokenness gave me a special sensitivity to the needs of others. And I think that brokenness also gave others the permission to be broken in front of me. Like I had been given that permission. And so now I was able to help others directly from my brokenness. It was the craziest thing. Almost every time we hit something deep and hard, I'd pull out like crayons or watercolors or even pen and pencil, and just ask them to like draw it out. And it didn't matter if the student had art skills or not, we would have the best conversations. I'd ask like, well, why did you choose to draw yourself that way? What's the relationship between these two things? And do you think this is actually true? Or like, what if things were different? What's within our power to change? There's questions you can ask when you externalize the thing that was inside. And once you get it out, it's not as scary as you thought. It's contained in that piece of paper or the canvas. So after a couple years in college and mentoring, for my senior thesis, I got really curious about the relationship between art and grief, and how it works in other cultures. So we all are in the context of our own culture. When we grieve, we're taking on the cultural norms and expectations that society puts around us. And for sure, we put expectations on ourselves. But there's also things that our society expects of us when we lose a loved one. In the United States, we're often expected to be done with grief within a year. We're given maybe a couple days off of work or school, whatever. And there just isn't a tradition or a way that we mourn anymore in modern culture. There's pat phrases like, oh, he's in a better place. It was his time. God needed another angel. Those aren't helpful words when someone's grieving. So in that thesis, I examined my own work over time. So from age 12 all the way to, at that point, I was 22. And I lined my artwork up on the walls of this gallery as like a timeline of my grief and my art. And I saw how I edited my grief, and I saw that breakthrough that came through, and I began to see what I was doing with my artwork in that present time, but I couldn't see it fully yet. I didn't know where I was going next. I married a photographer and fellow artist, Tony, in 2017. And right away we started talking about forming an art business. And we were people of passion and purpose, and we wanted to make a difference in the world and to help others. And Tony and my brother actually came to me with the idea of doing something with grief and art. They saw how I was mentoring others and how I was making work and telling stories, and felt that I had something to offer. And I was really surprised. I didn't think I had something that I could really offer the world, but I'm so glad that they believed in me and helped me do this. So they sat me down in front of a camera and built me a website, and from there I began to form a curriculum for ProjectGrief. So now it's about 2 years into it, and I'm the one filming and teaching and managing the website and learning all these business things. But it's been so amazing to be able to share my story, to help others in their darkest time, to find hope and healing. So everyone will go through a loss in their life, but if you haven't gone through a loss yet, you probably know someone who has. And so I encourage you to share this with them if you think it'll help, and also just to connect with them, to check in with them in their lives, even if it's been a year or more following the loss. People need your presence, and they need your permission to grieve. And that's such a powerful act that you can offer to someone who's grieving.